Well, welcome everybody to this great interview I get to do with Chieko Phillips of 4Culture. So excited to have you with us, Chieko. There's some great things on the horizon with 4Culture, and you guys are being very intentional about connecting with community and providing some funds. Let's get into it. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here and to share more about our recovery fund and sustained support program.
Absolutely. I mean, when we talk about the artist community, we understand it was hit so heavily with the pandemic. And so just want to say, as a fellow creative myself, thank you to 4Culture for being intentional in these ways. And make sure the audience understands about the parameters and the details of this funding.
Yes, thank you so much. And thanks for being part of the cultural community and thanks to Converge for doing your part to help lift up the creatives and organizations in the community that are continuing to do work and have continued to do work to keep our kind of spirits lifted during this pandemic. I know it's been really hard for everyone, but it's great to have a strong arts community and cultural community to fight for. And so this grant program that we have open right now, it's our Sustained Support and Recovery Program. It's actually an application process that brings together 3 funding opportunities that folks can apply to through one application. And so those 3 programs are for 4Culture's Sustained Support, which is a regular funding program that 4Culture offers to support operational expenses for cultural organizations in King County. The second program is recovery funds. These are federal recovery funds that come from King County. And the third program is also federal recovery funds, but these are the federal recovery funds that were allocated to the City of Seattle's Office of Arts and Culture. So folks can submit one application through our website and be potentially eligible and receive funding through up to 3 programs.
Wow, this is really innovative in terms of the approach. I know we've talked a lot about barriers to funding, particularly for smaller organizations, because the capacity to apply sometimes is where people find themselves in a bit of a lurch. So, how have you guys decided to make this so accessible to folks and combine these 3 funding opportunities into one application?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, we saw the crunch, the rush, the survival paperwork, as someone once described it to me, of folks, applicants and individuals and organizations and individuals trying to get those initial CARES, the initial federal recovery funds last year, and also the various, private foundations and really great community-led funds that, just people applying all over the place, trying to understand, where they could get funding from. And so this was actually an attempt to try to cut down on some of that. We know that organizations that are applying for the City of Seattle will probably be eligible or most likely be eligible to receive funding from 4Culture because City of Seattle, it's in King County, which is what 4Culture serves. So we figured there's going to be a strong overlap in the application pool anyway. There's a strong overlap in the eligibility. So why don't we, come together and try to take away just a little bit of that barrier of submitting multiple applications through kind of working together. And so it's been really great to work with the staff and the project managers over at the Office of Arts and Culture to try to cut down on at least one of the barriers.
We talked about breaking down barriers, but sometimes for some of these funds, I know that barriers are also embedded in the requirements for them. What can folks expect with some of those different things coming from kind of a federal level?
Yes, thank you. So there are, as I mentioned, there's 3 opportunities, 3 funding sources that you could potentially be eligible for through this one grant application. I do want to mention that for the federal recovery funds, so those will be the federal recovery funds that are offered through 4Culture and the federal recovery funds that are available from the City of Seattle Office of Art and Culture. You do have to be able to show via your tax documentation, so your 990 form, that you have a revenue loss from calendar year 2020 that was a result of the pandemic. So you have to be able to show that the revenue that you took in 2019 versus the revenue that you took in 2020 had a significant decrease in order to be eligible to receive funding from those two sources. That requirement does not count for the sustained support program. So you can still put in an application even if you have not had loss in 2020 that you haven't received funding for. But for those federal programs, you do have to show that you have unmet need in calendar year 2020 due to COVID.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things that's really kind of across the board with a lot of this ARPA funding, right? The American Relief Plan Act funding.
Yes.
We're seeing that. So I appreciate you for sharing that and making sure folks understand any barriers that they may occur in this process.
Yes, thanks for asking.
Now, when you talk about cultural organizations, that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And just off the top of my head, I know several organizations that their main business may not be the creative field, but they need creative applications to their organization in order for their organizations to thrive. How have you guys been able to kind of define what kinds of cultural organizations are able to apply for this funding?
So because there are so many different places where some of the federal funding, the federal ARPA funding is going, we are asking and actually have an eligibility requirement for our program that your primary mission focus, the primary mission focus of the organizations does need to be cultural. And so that could be artistic. Some of the there's many different disciplines that fall under arts, but artistic, that can be heritage. So working with local history, cultural heritage, preservation of cultural traditions, and also preservation, which is the preservation of the built environment, our historic spaces, our cultural spaces. So we do ask that organizations have a primary mission focus working with cultural disciplines. We do allow in the application, if you don't really have a mission or you're an informal group that doesn't have a adopted mission statement, that you can describe your work. You can describe, this is why the majority of our activities fall within a cultural discipline, and you can submit, your application and your explanation of your work that way.
Well, that's really interesting because that leads me to my next question. When I was thinking about projects, right? Sometimes there's a collaboration group that comes together for a very specific or particular project that may actually fall into the guides of a cultural project, whether it is heritage or arts focused. And it sounds like you guys are open to that as well. So do those kinds of groups just need to have like a fiscal sponsor if they're not organized like a 501c3?
Yes. If a group is not organized under an official 501c3 federal designation as a nonprofit, you can still apply. So you don't have to have that status at the time that you submit the application. But if you are awarded funding, you will need to have fiscal sponsorship in order to receive the funding. And you can actually gain fiscal sponsorship through any nonprofit, any other 501c3 that's willing to fiscally sponsor an organization. And if you do fall in that category, we definitely recommend call someone at 4Culture, call me. We can walk you through what that means to look for fiscal sponsorship. So we can walk groups through that.
Oh, I think this is really important. And, I love how you even said that, call me, because, your office and you yourself are being really accessible to the public for this process. What are some of the ways that people can engage if they are looking to learn more or connect with you? It sounds like you have a wide variety of ways of doing so.
Yes, we do. So we have workshops. We have workshops set up once a week until the deadline, which is November 5th. You can find those listed on our website. It's once a week and they vary. We actually have a workshop that's today at 5 p.m. And you do need to register via Zoom to get access to that link, but it's open to the public. We are also recording this workshop, and then it'll be on our website. So if you can't come and hear the kind of formal presentation, we have, PowerPoint and everything to walk you through the guidelines and walk you through the application. If you can't come and you can access the recording online, it'll be up in a few days. And then after the formal part of the workshop, we have 4 different Q&A kind of breakout rooms that you can circle in between. If you're not sure which discipline you kind of fit into, or you specifically have questions about recovery, or you specifically have questions for someone from the City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, we'll all be there, to take any sort of questions. Also, like I said, call me, like pick up the phone, call me. My phone number, let's see if 206-477-6811. It's also all over the 4Culture website. There are also other program managers all over the 4Culture website that can help out. We are so, like, if your first question is like, this is what I do, I don't know where to begin, that's fine. Like, we're here for that. We'll help you kind of get grounded, understand where you might be eligible, and get access to the application. I would say, feeling comfortable one-on-one contact with a program manager is one of the best pieces of advice that I can give to anyone that's applying for a grant. Whether you've done it a million times or you're brand new, touch base with a program manager before you get started.
Wow, this is really awesome. I'm excited because I think it's so necessary right now. And as you know, again, so many organizations and groups and projects are making adjustments. What will it look like for them? The deadline being November 5th. Do you guys have any foresight as to when these funds would actually be able to hit these organizations?
So we'll be running the panel process. So we have community panelists who will read the applications and help us score them, and that will be happening in late November. So realistically, people will be notified at the end of January or early February. You'll be notified that you've received funding, and then we'll go into the contracting period. So late February, early March, I think, actually, like, funds in your mailbox or through your electronic deposit, but you would get notification at the end of January.
All right, Chieko. Well, you guys are being very specific about how folks can get in contact with you for these funds. Let us know exactly all the measures that you guys are taking to make sure people can communicate with you and learn more.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I want to say, call me, pick up the phone. If you have questions, I always say no questions are too big or too small. Please feel free to pick up the phone and give me a call. 206-477-6811 is my work phone number. And I think even if your first question is, this is what I do, I don't even know where to begin, that's fine. I'll help get you. I'll either answer your questions or I'll help get you to someone who can help answer your questions. 4Culture will also have workshops leading up to the grant deadline, which is November 5th at 5 p.m. We have one workshop a week. We actually have one today at 5 p.m. You do have to register online, apply.4culture.org, but please register. Zoom workshop. We'll do a little formal presentation. We'll walk you through the application. We'll walk you through the guidelines, and then we'll have a Q&A session where you can talk. We'll have breakout Q&A. So if you have specific questions about recovery, you can go there. If you have specific questions about someone who works at the Office of Arts and Culture, we'll have someone there who can talk about that. And then the workshops, if you can't make any of the sessions, we know life's busy, we all got things to do. We will have a recording up on our website so you can watch at least the formal portion of it. And then if you have questions after you watch that formal portion, like I said, please pick up the phone, give a call, or shoot an email. We'll help get all of your questions answered.